thing rolling. I appreciate you doing this, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Michael, like I start every show, I always start off with, how I came across the guest. For me, it was, I don't know what it is. It's the whole pandemic thing's got me on a comedy kick.
Uh,
I've been obsessed with it, and I came across your half hour on Central,
oh, cool.
and I was hooked. It was something about the dryness. I don't know what it is. It packs a real punch. And so I'm like, you know what? I'll see if I could get him, let's get him. And here we are. So I really appreciate you doing this.
For sure. No, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, man, this is great. So as a comedian, first off, I mean, have you been able to do anything over this past year? I mean, you got a gig tonight. I mean, how has everything been with this pandemic for you as a live performer?
Well, when it all first started, there was a website that that was being developed
Mm-hmm.
that was like supposed to be competition for Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the very beginning, I don't remember like Zoom was getting hacked and stuff, and like
Oh yeah.
work that was a bad idea. So right away, probably like it was like April or May.
Mm-hmm.
I got connected with this lady who was doing these shows that were gonna be like to sell that to companies. Like they would
Right.
bring people that would want to buy that, like use that software or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we were gonna do a comedy show, and another guy did magic or something as a way to show how great this platform was. And we did two shows. The first one, mine kept coming in and out, which
Mm-hmm.
was bummer, but they heard it and it got fine or whatever. And then the second one, like I never saw a magician do this before, but he like finished his trick and it didn't go the way he wanted. He was just like, well, oh well. And then, like,
He just stops.
and then like I got another guy before me. It was like for corporate clients, and he did like a song about, I think it was either masturbation or something like very dirty. And then it came to me, and I just couldn't connect. Like I just had no internet. And so like she like lost all that work. Like she had like 10 shows. So that's how it all started. It was like, we were going to do this thing that was so awesome. And then it all fell apart. But after that, like I've done probably like 3 or 4 like club weekends
Mm.
and some Zoom shows for colleges. And yeah, tomorrow I'm doing a drive-in show on Saturday.
Oh, really? I mean, how does it work? Like, I talked to Kelvin Evans back in the fall, and he said it was like at the start, it was like you couldn't do it because I mean, 90% of the job is you know feeling the room. I mean, it's kind of hard to get up there. It's like bombing, but every day when you're trying to do a live stream show, it's like you don't know if it's working. Was that
Oh
hard
yeah,
for you at first? You're like, I don't know. Did I do
oh,
good? Did I? I don't
it
know.
still is. And I would disagree with Cal, because I mean, I don't know how he started, but that was like, the open mics or normal shows for the
Right.
first, or even shows now. And especially in big cities, if you go on a Monday night or something, it's not. So I feel like that's what COVID is like, so kind of like, but then you start to pick up how people are responding. So if you can
Sure.
see people and they're like laughing like that, sometimes it's better. I did a show recently for a high school where they're like, we're gonna have so many people here, we can't even see their screens because there'll be so many people, and you wanted to see people, so we'll have people. I'm like, no, only if it makes sense. And they're like, no, we'll be here, but the kids will be listening. And so it was like me doing a show for the kids, but the two guidance counselors were just sort of there, and like they just were
Oh.
kind of like, it was like so awful that they got off in like a minute or two because they realized how horrible it was to be on camera. And then the
Right.
shows were great. Like people were chatting and stuff, and it was fun. But
It's
it was just
crazy.
really funny because I'm so glad. I was like, don't do it if it's not working for you. Like,
Yeah. Don't
you
don't
don't have to be on
force it.
camera. I never ask people to be on camera or have their mic on if they don't want it, because it's gonna be way worse if they.
Yeah, that's wild. No, that's absolutely crazy. I mean, when it all started, it was fine because I there's some of the people they were going to mid-March, and then everything just kind of stopped. But it's just crazy. Now, where are you right now? You're in LA? Where are you?
I live in LA now, like
Right.
North Hollywood. Yeah.
LA. What sparked the move? Obviously, I mean that's the place to be as a comedian.
No, I
But
mean I mean Chicago is where I got a lot of like my late night stuff. Not a
yeah.
lot of it, but something in the beginning. And then I had a manager who was getting me like auditions here,
Hmm.
and I would just go on tape, and he was like, this would be a good
Good
time to come
place.
out here, and I just stayed. And that was like
Just
10
stay.
years ago.
Just stay. That's crazy. Now you got a
Yeah.
family too out there, right?
Yeah, I have a 2-year-old son. Yeah.
How's that working? COVID bring you closer or farther?
Oh, closer. He's great. I see him so much more than I would have. And I've gotten to see him since he was, I mean, I saw him when he was not COVID too. It was just I was leaving every week.
Yeah, I would hope. Yeah.
But I get to see him a lot, and it's great. I think he. I don't know if he'll remember a lot of it, but I will.
Right. Yeah. That's
And they
good.
say the first 3 years are great for like the kid like bonding with the
Hmm.
parents. I did that a lot.
Yeah. Well, at least it's at that. I mean, at least it's at a time. It's not. At least relatively long. At least it's at a time where he really is not knowing what's happening. So
Mhm.
it's you don't have to deal with the hey, why can't I see Johnny? What
Oh
the
yeah,
hell? Why can't
yeah.
I see him? Do you just you have no answer for me? Like I just can't see him. So that
When
helps.
when people complain on social media about like not being able to do stuff, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's being a dad of a 2-year-old anyways.
Right.
So it's not like we got to do it anyways.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah.
crazy. No, that's cool though, because I know some people are having a tough time with that, and it's interesting to see how they adapt. Usually, it brings them
Yeah.
closer, or sometimes farther, and it varies for everyone certainly. But I mean,
Yeah.
how does a kid from yeah, you grew up in Indiana, from what I take in that special, correct? So
Yeah.
you grew up in Indiana. This is the thing that's interesting to me. I loved a lot of the stuff in the half hour because
Thanks.
of the Irish Catholic thing. That's my mom to a T.
All
So
right. Yeah.
it was dead on. So I'm watching the whole thing. I'm like, oh, this is great. But that's the thing that caught me was you grew up in a small town in Indiana. What
Yeah.
constitutes small?
Oh, so yeah, I should. So we thought I was born in Cleveland, like
Yeah.
Cleveland University
Hmm.
Hospital, and then we lived like in a suburb of Buffalo, New York. So it was like those are pretty like Cleveland's a big city,
Yeah.
Buffalo, I don't
Hmm.
know. So Wabash was the name of the town I grew up in, and it's not. There were like 14,000 people in it. So
Oh,
in
that's pretty
sports,
tiny.
there were like 1A and we were 2A. So like we weren't
Mm.
the smallest, but we were
Yeah,
pretty.
it's crazy. Now you have a brother growing up too, right?
Yeah, I had older and younger.
You guys close?
Yeah, my younger brother lives here, so I see
Oh,
him about. I've seen him like every week. It's pretty much
that's
the last
great.
couple months. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome.
yeah. My older brother lives in Ohio. Like and he has 3 kids, so he's really busy.
Oh
But
shit! Wow, life is really hitting the
he
fan
bought
for
me
him.
this sweatshirt.
That's
So
crazy. There you go, Xavier. Xavier
yeah,
Musketeers.
yeah.
You didn't even go there, did you?
I did go there.
You
That's where I
did.
went.
That's where you
Yeah.
went. Awesome. Good stuff. So that's funny because that's the thing. I don't know why that's funny, but this is funny what I'm gonna say. So how does this is the thing I'm trying to process is at what point were you like, you know what, English wasn't gonna do it? I'm gonna be comedy. I mean, that's like different. When did that just was it how did that come to be?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, like I went to a smaller high school, so you
Hmm.
could sort of, which I liked looking back. I don't.
You get
Are
more
you?
help, more time.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, well, for me too, it was like if you go to a small high school, you kind of don't have a good perception on how many people there are in the world. Because like
Which
if
is
you want
good.
to do something, you just do like I mean, pretty much every sport, if you wanted to play and you
You could
showed
do it.
up and you practiced, by the time you're a senior, you're probably gonna play a little bit,
Right.
like, or
Yeah.
you go do something else because you were tired of it. Like, you never really had to face the reality of I'm not good enough to do this.
Right.
For most things, I mean, some sports, but most guys either decide not to play or they, or they wanted to play and they did. And
Sure.
so I played a lot of sports and because I thought that was the most fun.
Hmm.
And then like I liked comedy, I liked like writing, I liked acting, but I didn't really do any because
Hmm.
I was pretty busy. But then when I went to college, I realized like I tried out at Xavier and I didn't know how that would go, but like I didn't make it and it was good because I always wanted to do other things and I
Hmm.
was able to do them. Like I still played baseball in the summer, but I was able to like take acting classes and when I moved to answer your question, when I went to college, my parents moved to Orland Park in Chicago, like
Oh,
the
okay.
Chicago
Yeah.
area. So, because my dad started working in Joliet
Mm.
before that, and so when I was home for the summer, I didn't know anybody, and I was just like working, and I was at a Borders, which is an old bookstore, and there
Yeah.
I found a book on stand up, and in the back of the book, it listed a bunch of different like places you could get up, having never gone up before, and one was in
Mm.
Oak Lawn, which was really close to where my parents lived. And so I read that book and I always wanted to do stand up and I called and went up to their new talent night and that was it.
That was it.
Yeah. Then I started to learn more about it. Like I did it a couple times that summer. And then the next summer I did it like every week. And then I listened to an interview that Seinfeld did about how he went up every day. And so when I
Mm.
finished college, I told my mom that's what I was going to do. And she's like, what are you going to do for money? And I was like, we'll talk later.
We'll talk. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just that easy though with her. Like she was just like, sure, well it's fine.
Well, it was interesting because when I went to college, my dad's an accountant, my brother is an engineer, or
Oh wow.
he's a lawyer now, but he was an engineer. And so my dad was like, "Oh, you can go to Xavier and be pre-med," like because they didn't have an engineering program, and
Right.
I mean, I guess they had an accounting program, but and I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." And he was like, I was like, "I'm going to major in English." He's like, "No, you can't get a job with that." So like, I went online and Googled it. I never found that list. Like, I can't find it now, but there was a list at one point of like really successful English majors, and like there was a Supreme Court justice, and
Oh,
I think the one that did it. Well, there was Chevy Chase was an English
oh,
major, and my
okay.
dad loved Saturday Night Live in the '70s,
Yeah. It worked out
and
for him.
yeah, exactly. Marty Schottenheimer, who's the coach of the
Oh,
Browns, when my
yeah.
dad he was born and he loved the Browns, so I think he just sort of like stopped. And also my older brother, who was an engineer, just was like, he really wasn't into it.
Hmm.
And my mom was like really supportive of me finding something I liked because that made her happy. So he kind of backed off when I was in college and just sort of let me do my thing. And then when I finished college, my dad was like, "Well, this is kind of what you did," because I did like theater and started doing stand up, and like I did a ton of it in college for a college student.
Hmm.
And so he was like, "If you should do that." And my mom was like, "You should get a job." And he was like, "No, that's going to be hard to do both and really succeed if you're going to do that." So I lived at home and I drove their car and I ate their food, and I
Yeah.
just did that for a few years, and that was it.
That was it. Well, see, that's the other thing that I could kind of relate to with that one, because it's like that was kind of like that's kind of where I am at. I'm kind of
Yeah.
at that point in life where I'm like, well, I have a job, I have a car. It's like I'm not with anyone.
Yeah.
You guys stay here if it's cool. Like
Yeah.
was
Oh, yeah.
so
Great.
at that point was that a battle of like an internal battle for you, like personally inside, like you know what, I'm having fun with this, but I kind of want to get out of it. What was the point that kind of broke you out of that shell? Was it hard to kind of detach and move on to that next step?
Oh, to like move out?
Yeah,
I mean, I keep a car there. I really
yeah.
haven't. Like my older brother's like, "You got to do something." Because I feel like as a comedian, I was working the road a
Hmm.
lot near the end before I even moved out. So I was gone a ton. And they started charging me rent. So it wasn't like I was like, not a lot.
I got to
Very,
shop for cheaper places.
I know. Yeah. But I think it was literally, it's always, I don't know, for better word, it's been about my career. Like I was going to stay there because it allowed me to do what I loved.
Right.
It's not like I was like really where I could afford to move anywhere for that long anyways. Like
Hmm.
after I moved probably about 2 years after the first year where I didn't like, where I probably like had to pay taxes. It was like, it took me like 4 years to make no money. And
Oh
then
wow.
so I really didn't have like a bunch of years where I was making money before I moved. Maybe like three. I don't know. I'd have to look back. But I think it's always just been about, this is the best way to save money. And especially in comedy, you don't know what's going to go.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I was just like, I'm just going to save and work the road. And some friends would be like, "Oh, you got to get your own place." And it just seemed like so silly to
Right.
like spend money. And it would have been really fun, I think, to live in Chicago. But looking back, I think like when I was in Chicago, I liked seeing my parents when I was off the road because
Hmm.
they were nice and it was nice. And to get a place in the city when I was on the road that much seems less important now.
Yeah, it makes no
Like 5 years
sense.
after that, I wasn't on the road as much, so I probably would have gotten more out of it. But I liked living in LA. Like I like living in LA now, and it's really nice to have a place now. But I would have ridden it out as long as I wanted to.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like would you feel then there's obviously more opportunity in LA? Obviously, correct?
When I
Or
mean,
not? I don't know.
no, I think there definitely is for, well, when I moved, there was definitely more. Like now there's more shows being made in New York. Like
Hmm.
there's more, and like sometimes there's more comedians that have been sort of like picked people out of New York that are in New York and to do stuff. But I mean, not more than LA, but a good amount
Hmm.
total. Like LA still has the most like TV and movies being made, but
Right.
that path is, it's a challenging one to crack. But I still have been able to do like I did Conan and Ferguson
I
and
know it's
Corden.
crazy, man.
Yeah, and I think those kind of happened because I already lived here. And Last Comic Standing, it was a lot nicer to not have to travel back and forth. And I think I was like an alternate the year I got for like advanced. So I don't think that would happen if I didn't live here. So I think those advantages definitely happened because I lived here. And now I have a son here, so I'm not gonna
Yeah,
go.
that's great. That's great.
Do you play baseball? There's baseball bats
I
behind you.
play baseball? I did to one point, but I'm a huge fan, like huge
Yeah.
fan of baseball. So those are all bats from like players,
Oh, that's
early
awesome.
players and stuff. It's
Yeah.
a like super nerd. Like I can't break out of that. Like that's the one thing. It's like Jimmy Fallon and Fever Pitch. That's me. So like I went on a date once with this one girl. We went to the NLCS. It was 2017. Cubs got smoked. They were horrible. That Darvish was on the Dodgers then,
Yeah.
at Wrigley, and I'm sitting there the whole time. Like, there's my friends are behind me, and they're trying to get me into it. I'm like, just sitting there like this. Usually I'm animated. I'm so in the game, and I'm like, I can't look
Yeah.
like an idiot. I can't blow my cover. But yeah, that's the thing, man. It is full blown baseball for me. So
I went to the
that's
World Series that year in 2017. It was the
yeah,
first
that
one in LA, and I was able to get a ticket, and it was really fun. I just love baseball.
yeah. Well, see, LA's weird in the sense that like unless you're good, I mean, they're not really there for you. Like they'll go and then
They
like
weren't even there. So I went in 2017. Went to games before that. Like I started going to games, so I moved out here because it's like you can get $12 tickets that
cheap.
are good. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that would be at like a normal place where the stadium club is, like that
Hmm.
view, but for like $15 or something,
Yeah.
really cheap. And it's like 20 minutes from where I live. And I
Why
love
not?
baseball and it's beautiful. And so I went like a few times a year, and then um I went to a playoff game that year, and then I ended up getting to go to the World Series. And then, but even after they
It's
went that
crazy.
year, it was still really easy to get tickets up to the
Really.
pandemic. Like I don't know if it'll change now that they won, but it's a big stadium too.
Oh yeah.
So it's not, yeah, it's nice. Whereas
Well,
like
see,
Wrigley, you can't
yeah.
go.
Well, you can't, and I mean, you can't afford it unless you own a
Yeah,
business. Like maybe even
yeah.
then, I mean, it's because I mean the tickets are astronomical for standing room for like a World Series. Like on StubHub, like they tweet out the thing that someone bought a ticket at time of game, $1,500 to stand. I'm like,
Oh,
I
I
can
did not
watch
do
it
that.
at home,
Yeah,
buy several beers for
yeah,
less than the price of one
yeah.
at a
No, I
game.
I definitely did not have to pay that much.
Yeah. Well, see, that's a nice thing though too, is that like LA, a home game for the Dodgers feels kind of like a home game for the Cubs because of that
Yeah,
price point is so low.
for sure.
It's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
But for you, I mean, there's different things within comedy. I mean, they have different cities. Some people do better in other ones than they do in others. For you, which city did you feel you kind of held your weight a little bit more? Was it Boston, New York, Chicago, LA? I mean, LA's where you are, but which city was kind of the good one for you, and which one was kind of hard to kind of bring people in?
yeah. I don't know. I mean, Chicago is where I started, so it
Sure,
was hard in some aspects because,
that's all you knew.
yeah, it took a while.
Hmm.
Some rooms were quicker than others, and I was like hosting at clubs before I was working, like
Oh
doing the good
wow.
showcases in the
Hmm.
city. Or Zanies wasn't really looking at new people at that time. So, but then it got easier. But then it got like, so I think Chicago is easier because I started there, or it used to
Sure.
be. I don't know now because some people left. And then LA was similar. Like it was kind of easy because I was visiting, and then when I moved here, it was harder. And now,
Hmm.
like I just know a little bit more people. Um, and then New York, I think would probably be the hardest because I've never lived there. I think it's all about, for me, just getting on stage. And if you're
Hmm.
there longer, you can get there. And I've never really been to Boston, so I don't know how Boston is. But
Yeah, Boston.
as far as crowds go, um, I think it all changes. Like I've done good shows in New York. I've done good shows in LA. I've done good shows in Chicago. I've done pretty bad
Everyone
shows.
does.
And like, there's great. I think someone told me one time that like and this is probably like 5 years ago, at least, that like the average comedian in New York is better. He was from New York than like LA, but in
Hmm.
LA, they're like the best comedians were at the time. So like the top of New York, which now is, I mean, obviously there's great comedians that live in New York, but he was saying there's more great comedians in LA at the time.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's I think it's changed though, like mightily,
yeah,
like completely. Like New York started and then it went to LA, and it feels like LA has been it for a while now. I mean,
yeah,
Chicago too in the early beginning, but LA
yeah.
seems to be holding it the most. So the thing that I find is interesting is the first couple stretches of it, like playing across the country. I mean, that's a self-booking gig. I mean, when you start
Yeah.
out, you don't start out with a manager like,
No.
hey, I'm going to do this. You want to be a man? Like you have to build that thing. What was so trying about that process? I mean, here you are, like, is it really worth it? Like, was it a trying experience doing that
Yeah.
all?
I mean, I would say like if I were looking back at myself or someone was
Yeah,
asking me how they should approach it, I think the biggest trying part of it was like being hard on myself
sure.
because
Yeah.
I wasn't having a job. So I was living off of my parents basically, even though I was like pretty easy, it was still, I'm still there,
Right.
and, I'm eating their food and stuff. But, um, so I think like I was really hard. Like I remember there was a club and they said I could host there and they would pay me. And then every week the guy wouldn't bring his book, like to write me down in. Like that was like his thing. He just wouldn't bring it. Like that was his power move. Or he maybe just did forget it a lot.
There's this
And I
power
remember
move.
one morning, my dad was waking up to go to work and he was excited for me. He's like, "Oh, did you get?" And I was like upset, not at him, but at the situation.
Right.
And I was like, I should have just been like, no, but I will, because he wasn't upset that I didn't get it. Yeah. And what was gonna, it was like, it was $40 a show. That wasn't going to change his life or
Right.
anybody. So it was like, there's no, the old owner of Zanies told me one time, there's no show that every show can either make your career and also mean nothing at the same time. Like you'll never know necessarily when you're doing it, how important it is. And I think that's kind of like how the career is. It's like every moment you can't make a big deal out of it because it's just what it is. So it was, I felt pretty lucky because in the beginning I ran into some like good people in the suburbs who were like funny comedians that were already hosting and featuring. And so like I was able to find out about how to work at clubs through them. And then I met comedian Tommy Johnigan, who's very funny. And he was only in Chicago for a few months, but him and Andy Woodhall were from St. Louis. And I would see them and like they would write. And then like I kind of like learned how his career, like how to want a career sort of out of it, because he was the first person I met that kind of had like really real goals that he was achieving. And I was like, oh, that is something you could do. Whereas before that, we were just all like, oh, let's try to get feature work or whatever, hosting work. So I think like in the beginning that was easier also because when you're hosting and featuring, you can do more weeks a year at a club. You can go like every month to host if they like you, or every 4 months or whatever. And so you don't need as many clubs. And then when you get up to headlining, it's like, oh, everything is sort of like you like once every 18 months, even if you do well. So I think it's almost easier back then because there's no expectations, and it's harder now because it's like, well, now I'm in it and I still like have the same like enjoyment of it.
Sure.
But it's easier to get work when there's less people, and it's easier to make an impact when someone hasn't seen you before. But at the same time, it's more fun to do it now when you're however many years in, 16 years in, 18 years in.
Jesus, that's a long time. I mean, it really is though for comedy, because you see this thing. There's a funny because Mark Maron has this one bit. I forget what it was in. I think it was in. He said in an interview in one of his specials. He goes, I mean, that's a long time. Sometimes you go to like the walls of Zanies in Nashville and you see all these photos, and Maron says this thing. He's like, I wonder what happened to that guy. Like, like you just have these photos of these people's faces and they just disappear. They go. You don't know where they went. I
just heard an interview where he did that. And I was like, yeah, that's the Zanies in Chicago is wall to wall there's a whole wall.
Every photo. Yeah.
They put all the dead people on one part.
It's crazy. They're all black and white, so they might all be dead. They all like even the new ones, they're black and white too, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing though too is with your comedy is, I don't know if this is true. I could be completely wrong, but there's some comedians that I really like, and I kind of pointed out some similarities within yours with some of the dryness. There were some Brian Regan hints that I touched up on with your dryness, where like that the science or what he's very I do and has there been some inspirations along the way that you kind of not draw from, because it's your own craft, you making money off someone else's joke, but was there some, I mean, who are the ones out there that really captured you?
Yeah, so that's really interesting. So when I started, Mitch Hedberg was like the most, like the comedian that everyone sort of knew who started, and he died I don't know, 10 years now maybe.
Yikes. Yeah.
But he was really funny, and he wrote short jokes that were like, you could tell they were things that he would have thought of anyways, but somebody found a way to say them on stage, and it was very funny. If you like just YouTube Mitch Hedberg, he was great. And so I feel like that's that, like, and he was a comedian that wasn't like, when I was a kid, I wasn't necessarily the class clown. That wasn't my persona, was making fun of people. And he was someone who clearly wasn't like that. Like there was an awkwardness that he naturally had that was sort of, that made me believe, oh, you don't have to be like the smooth talking, roasting guy. So I think he was the first one that, and well, not the first. I mean, Bill Cosby, well, I was a kid, I didn't know any better. Like I heard his albums forever, like to the point where I thought he wasn't funny anymore, because I was like, well, I'm like, oh, because I've heard this over and over and over again. Sure. It's still really, it was good. And then Seinfeld, I mean, I still am inspired by like his career and like his process, and his jokes are great. So I think those guys in the very beginning. And then when I first came out to LA, I saw Bill Burr for the first time, and he was
Oh,
just so good. Um, so like he definitely like sort of redefined how you I don't know. Like I met him one time and
oh
I talked about
wow.
writing things down. He's like, I haven't written jokes down in 7 years, or like, it was like a long time. Like
Just becomes natural, right? After a
he just
while.
probably, I don't know. He talks it out and then does it on stage. And I
Jeez,
heard
that's
something about that
crazy.
with Louis too. Louis doesn't like to write it down word for word.
CK?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is before all that stuff happened. But when I saw him, I was like, oh, he's doing something no one else is doing, or doing something that I haven't seen really.
Right.
And so those were guys that like were like showstoppers. Like, I don't know how to do that. And that's
Yeah.
really good. Regan has always been great to me, but my friend introduced me to his comedy and I've always loved it, but it was something as a comedian, I sought out. Whereas like those guys were people that I just sort of like somehow found or heard about, and they changed like my perspective on the art form or whatever,
Hmm.
which I know people don't call it art, but I do.
Why
And
do you think that is? It is an art though.
I think it's stupid. Like I saw there was one comedian that was special where he's just in the special to joke about it, which good. I'm glad he got to laugh. But I feel like, I mean, I was an English major, we read a lot of pretentious novels, and it's like, that's not better than this. The only
Right.
thing I can think of is that when you do a joke on stage, you get a reaction right away that's
Yes.
measurable. Whereas like when you create
Gratifying.
a piece of like painting or a song, it makes an emotion happen that you can't
Yeah.
necessarily like
You don't know what it is,
bottle
if
up
it's good
or
or
whatever.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love Brian Regan to this, like he's probably one of my favorites. And so him, like that I've sort of found as a comedian, him, Jim Gaffigan as a comedian, like I found him, Mike Birbiglia. Those were all guys I found when I was already sort of doing it and I really liked it. And they
Hmm.
were, not to say they weren't, they were just as good, and I'm an idiot for not knowing about them before. And then the people I know that are very funny, like I mentioned Tommy John again, and then the people I started out with, like Brian Hicks and Denise Ramsden. I think she's all this, like they were so funny to me. Brian Aldridge, and then like Chad Daniels is a special on
Oh,
Amazon
okay.
that's so good. Uh, and Pat McGann is really funny. Like I
Oh
think they're
yeah, he's
all
great.
up.
Yeah.
Not like they're all really funny. Just one thing I've learned in comedy is that someone can be really funny and not break yet. And
Isn't that
a
crazy?
lot of people like that. Yeah.
I think a lot of it though too is it goes back to what you said at the beginning. It's like finding that confidence too, because the first
Yeah.
time I've never done comedy, I just freaking love it. But
Yeah.
is finding a way to get back up after that first time you get knocked on your ass. I mean,
Yeah. I
if you
heard.
can get over that, I feel
Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't know, I've never done it, but I feel like that's a thing that kind of like, oh, I don't want to do this again. But I think that's a real telling point.
Yeah, I bombed my first time for sure. The only time people laughed is when like after my
When
joke,
you
I'll be like,
left,
"Oh, that didn't work." Like that was my and I always felt like and I played like I played sports growing up, so I was used to a lot of defeats. So I that was never like a concern to me, like, is this gonna go well? I just wanted to do it and I
right?
liked it. Like I was reading Seinfeld as a new book, and he was just like, I didn't want to necessarily be good. I just wanted to be as good as I could and
Sure.
do it because I liked it. So I kind of felt that way before even knowing about that process.
Hmm.
But then I hear some people say that they kill. One person told me she killed her first time, and if she hadn't, she wouldn't have kept doing it. And I kind of wanted to be like, well,
Whoa,
you don't have to
gross.
keep doing it. Like she's a very successful person already.
Uh-huh.
Like and because I do feel like you're gonna
That's
fail.
a
And
high
I think it's just a
bar.
personality type.
It's way too high of a bar.
Yeah. And I think some people just have a personality type where they're like, I'm going to succeed. And she is very successful. But I do like the idea that I liked it. I remember so the first time was bad. The second time was good. And then third time was really bad.
Hmm.
And the third time I remember looking around the room and like, I didn't know how shows work. Like I didn't know like at the beginning it's harder, or it was for a contest that I wasn't even in. I was just doing a set and I didn't know like the crowd might not really listen to me, but I
Huh.
was just like, wow, they're not listening at all. Like they're not
This
laughing at
sucks.
all. And I'm having a really good time. And I thought that was really important for me because I was like, I was enjoying it for what it was, not like that's one thing that's I think a challenge because it doesn't happen every time. Like if they're not enjoying it the way I want them um, to still be able to enjoy myself and detach myself from the results and just be like,
Hmm.
this is a thing that I'm doing and I'm doing it. I want the goal is to make them laugh. I'm never going to
Right.
give up on that, but they're not gonna. I'm gonna feel good regardless because you
Sure.
can't attach yourself to your work.
Right. And, that kind of leads me to kind of the special thing because I haven't ever asked someone this before. Is when you did like was the half hour the Comedy Central's half was that your first uh special?
Yeah,
It
for sure.
was.
Yep.
So for that, I mean, you just
I
kind
thought that
of
was gonna be your question for a second. I was like,
well,
okay,
no, like yeah, that's just you
you never
can't go
asked it
anywhere with
before.
that. Like you just that's you can't go anywhere with that. But well, after after you when you do that, I mean, to kind of piggyback off what you were saying is, you're up there feeling it. You don't know if the crowd is for the specials. How does that work? Because like sitcoms or talk shows on TV, you always have the crowd, but it's like you always they laugh at everything. Was it? How does was there? That was all what you saw in the special. I mean, that was all real. There wasn't any artifact stuff in there. I mean,
No, no,
how does
no.
that work for a special? Because sometimes I feel like you could tell. I mean, it sounded. I mean, was that hard too to try to pick up on all that and putting together um, the half hour as far as the bits go because of where we've come as a society with censorship and cancel. I can't say this, can't say this. Is there a little bit tighter of a grip on things like that?
Well, the first question, like, with I feel like I've been to a sitcom taping, and I feel like that's a long day. So it's
Yeah.
like sometimes 8 hours. You're like
Oh
sitting
shit.
there, and they're trying to get you to laugh, and I get that. I still feel like I don't know. I've never been in a sitcom, so I can't really speak to that. And
Yeah.
then, but the Tonight Show and the late shows that I've done, when sometimes they don't warm them up in the same way, and
Oh,
it is a little tighter, and that's
yikes.
less fun. And then, but the ones that they do, like the first one I ever did, Jay Leno went out to the crowd
Oh
before,
my
canceled me,
gosh.
and he was like, "Hey, this is his first time. If you could just like enjoy it a lot." And
Yeah.
James Corden did that too. He didn't say it's my first time, but he was like, "They're
Even
used
if
to."
you don't like it, just do it.
Yeah, exactly. James Corden did the same thing. He was like, "They're used to performing at night when people are drunk, so
Right.
pretend to be drunk." Like, he was really when the head of the show tells everyone that it's okay to laugh at this new person who's not them, it changes everything. Like I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes I've done shows where the crowd is like, "No, we like the guy behind the desk, and so we'll enjoy this because he told us to." But like when they say to enjoy it, I feel like they are laughing more because they do know, but it does feel very earned. And if you watch the tapes, there's different levels of how
Right.
people do. And so for the special, that was the first time they ever did those. Like they used to do Comedy Central Presents, and then they changed to this thing, and it was in Boston. And I watched the taping the day before, and like it was a rock venue, which I've done some of
Interesting.
those before. And sometimes the sound isn't the way you would want it for a special. Like you really want like no
Ah.
ceilings and like people crammed in. And it was good for me. Like I was opening for Garfunkel and Oates, like they were recording theirs
Holy
along with
shit,
mine.
that's
So I went before
crazy.
them, and
Yeah.
everybody knew that,
Hmm.
and their crowd was very much a
Hmm.
good crowd. Like
Oh
they
yeah.
sold out the tickets right away. I mean, they're free, but they sold them out, and so that crowd was really excited to see them, and they were also like warmed up well. So I mean, and you can tell people are laughing. I was very happy and very grateful the way it went. But if it hadn't gone that way, I would have just done it and did the best I could. And luckily for all the stuff that's really lasted longer, I've been happy with how it looked and sounded, for TV special wise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. The interesting thing is I find it because I've never been to any of the late night shows or anything in the crowd or anything, but did those moments, as big as they are, I mean, those phenomenal moments, did they in that moment because you're standing there, did they bring you back to the beginning days visually because you go, wow, this kind of looks like Zany's, but it's not. This is big. This is what
Yeah.
was that kind of like a shock, like, oh, this is like back home.
Yeah. That's very perceptive. So the first like late night I did was the Tonight Show.
Hmm.
And I think I enjoyed it. And those are like my first
Obviously, yeah.
5 minutes or whatever that I ever did for that show or for
Hmm.
any late night show. So it was really exciting. But when I went out there, it really took me by surprise how I was like, they were like stands. It was like football stands basically of people. So it was like a lot of people, and they were lit and they were very excited. And there was just it seemed like a whole new thing. Like up until recently, every time I've done like a short set on TV, I've always forgotten a joke because it's like, or a part of a joke because it's such a new experience.
Sure.
And so I've heard of other comedians running their set over and over again. I remember my first one, I was like, well, I don't want to like ruin the momentum of it or whatever. So I didn't do it a lot and I forgot a joke. And then the second one, I don't know how much time I had to work on it. But then when I had the time, I just started doing them many times as I could, just because I was like, when I get on stage, it's going to be a completely new experience regardless. So I might as well try to remember all my jokes.
That's crazy. So, I mean, 16 years, you've been doing this for a while. What was the first time you got that the break at the Comedy Store? I take it you've done that a
No,
handful. Really? You
so
haven't done it yet?
well, no, when I went to the Comedy Store, there was a booker named Tommy who
Oh,
used to
they've
put me on,
changed
like,
over the years. Yeah.
yeah, so they changed. And when I moved to LA, no one would go to the Comedy Store. Like people would go to the Comedy Store. They started to, like Bill Burr was going. Like there were some really good guys, but there was this like feeling about the Comedy Store.
Huh.
You had to sort of wait around and go up, and I would do it.
Yeah.
I would go up on Sunday and Monday nights, sometimes at like 2 a.m. and it was fine. It felt like kind of a waste of time because I already was working the road and doing a lot of
Like this
stage
is
time.
nothing.
Well, and it was like you want to get up in front of agents and managers. I already a manager, but you want to get industry to see you.
Yeah.
And I think they went there, but it just seemed like a lot of time when I could have been like, I mean, I was getting auditions, so I could have been working on other things, but it was fine. And I liked it. But then when he left, I mean, I just haven't, the new guy really likes, I mean, like he's great. I'm sure. I don't know him. And I don't know the way in, and I haven't, I mean, now with COVID, but I haven't put the time
Right.
into like back in. And he has so many like famous people. Like it got to be such a hot spot. It was such a competition to get in there that I was like, I'd rather just do spots where I know I can do sets and
Right. I don't want to have to feel like I have to force my way in, because once you do that, it's like, I don't know.
Well, I don't mind forcing my way to like sit and watch or to
Right.
eventually do sets. I just,
I shouldn't have to buy for that opportunity. Like,
well, I think everybody does. That's the thing. You're in LA, you're starting over.
Yeah.
I don't feel like any of the shoulds exist. I think it's
that's
fine.
that's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
I just wanted to do more joke. I like doing jokes. When I started out in Chicago, I would do open mics or go on the go do clubs, and there people had their showcases, and they'd be like, "Well, come watch," and I was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do shows for." Like I would just rather perform than watch.
Right.
And until it's shown to me that that's the only way to do it, which it's not, then I'm not going to change. Like maybe at some point I'll be like, oh, I have this time off. I'm going to go hang out at the Comedy Store.
Sure.
But I haven't done that. And I think there is part of that in stand-up. Like when I started, I would go to a Wednesday night and they were like, only come when you sign up. That's the only time you come. But then my friends were like, you can come every week. Just come every week. They just say that because everyone will come every week. So it's like,
that's the point though, right?
Yeah, but there's not enough slots. Like at that room, they gave you like 15 minutes sometimes. So
wow,
he would put you up sometimes, majority of the time. But they would say don't come every week. So I think that's part of the Comedy Store too. Is like, or all those places, it's just magnified because there's so many more comics.
Yeah,
you can go hang out at the Improv and maybe get up, but also you can work on your pilot or something and.
There you go. Now, since I mentioned the Comedy Store, Jeff Scott recently just passed away, unfortunately. Did you have any memories with him?
So I think I did one show where there's a piano player and I didn't know who he was. But from all the memories they posted, it seemed like a really nice guy.
Yeah, that was I was really hoping like, oh, a big long story, but I get it.
Yeah, no,
no, I'm just fucking with you. I'm messing with you, man. No, there was one comedian I talked to, Mike Marino, who had like a 40-minute story, which is, I mean, it depends. I mean, different, like you said, there's different times, different the places. It seems like it's gone through completely different, like, I don't know, like not personalities, but like the exception of different types of people and hierarchies of comedians in the field. Like I feel like it's more of a pristine. It's always been pristine, but I feel like you really have to be top of the top in order to even get a look at now. And it's kind of crazy because when it started, everyone, they were just starting, but now it's turned into something different.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Like if I knew there was a way, like one of a comedian I opened for got a Netflix special, and she wasn't given a Netflix.
Is it Taylor
special.
Tomlinson?
No, well, I mean, I know her, but I don't. I think they probably got like they booked her or whatever.
Sure.
My friend like shot her herself, and was kind of told that like if she shoots herself, and Netflix might buy it. Like there's a good chance. And so she did that,
What?
and it
That's
worked out.
crazy.
So if someone was like, Michael, if you come here 3 days a week for a year, you'll get passed and get sets here for the rest of your life. I'll be like, oh, or until this booker's gone. That makes sense. But yeah, I think my main goal is to like continue and turn over material and work on that. And so whatever helps that.
Right.
And if it looks like I'm not getting any looks from anybody in the industry, then yeah, it's time to like go to these places and talk to people. But
Sure.
I have a manager right now. I have a like a PA agent, and then I've done TV in the last few years, so it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. No, I mean it's really picked up. Like, I mean, being on all that stuff and stuff like that. At any time, were you always a pretty grounded kid? I mean, it sounded like just from talking to you and just seeing some of your stuff. I mean, it seems like you've always just been pretty grounded. But was there a time once that stuff started to pick up with the TV and all that stuff, whatever got to you, or were you always just like, oh, this is cool, like sure, like. You never change or let that get to you at all, did you?
No, I mean, I think the only way it changed was like in the way that I felt. Like I wasn't like, oh, I don't need to talk
I
to.
can't talk to you. I'm big now.
Someone texted me that one time.
What?
Like, yeah.
Can I still talk to you?
Yeah, she used to be a writer on a show, and we were hanging out, and the person that show was gonna like go meet up with her, and she was like, "Hey, you can like say hi when she picks me up or whatever." And
What?
and then the creator of the show like invited me to hang out with them, and she was really cool, and like it was really fun. And so my friend got hired to write for a bigger show, and I was like, "Oh, does that mean I get to hang out with that person too?" And she's like, "No, that means I don't have to talk to you anymore." I was like, that's funny, but also, I mean, no, I never did that. I do feel like I put more pressure on myself.
Yeah.
To have something happen. Like the way when I started, when I was like, I can't believe I didn't get this weekend because the guy didn't bring his book. It was sort of like, oh man, I can't believe that I sucked at this audition. When it was like, well, with an audition, you might have done really well, but they just went with you. They're hiring one person. They're looking at how many people. So I think I put more pressure on myself the bigger the opportunities, which I'm trying to not do anymore, or just take my own opportunities in the sense of making stuff. And then I do feel like at a comedy club, there's like the host and the feature and the guest spots. And I always felt like when I was the lower level, like the host and the feature, not lower, but like the usually less experienced, I would be very like, asking questions and nice and hang out and stuff. And I feel like when I'm on the road as a headliner, sometimes I'm always willing to like always talk and I'm nice to people, but I don't really like hanging out a lot. Like I just want to go back and
do your work. Okay, I'm gonna go home now. Like
I mean, like I'll hang out sometimes, but I feel like, and sometimes I feel like people are asking me questions and I'm nice, like I'll answer them and listen. But I know for me to have that in every city, it wears on me a little bit. And so I hope that doesn't show because I'm very understanding. Like I want people to talk to me about comedy or anything. And I also feel like sometimes there's like a sad, not bitterness, but it's just like, I know where I'm at right now. And I know how fun it was, but also how hard it was. And then there's these guys that are starting out in cities that aren't close to Chicago or LA or New York. And they're wanting the same thing I wanted. And I just get sad because I'm like, I don't know if that even exists anymore.
I know, it's crazy.
I don't know how you would do it because I don't even know how to do it other than just to write and do shows.
Yeah.
So I think I see the numbers of comedians out there now, and it just seems a little daunting because I feel bad because there's not spots for everybody right now. So,
well, yeah, I mean, you don't think there's more spots though? Wouldn't you think there'd be more spots now with, I mean, how everything's kind of growing?
You're right. There are definitely more spots, and maybe I think definitely in like TV and the internet, there's more, and like there's more independent rooms that people are starting. So it's led to a good like sort of revolution.
But it's been infiltrated. There's way too many now.
But I do know, like I went to Chicago to run sets when I was at doing a late night thing or something, and I was just. And it was the same thing the guys, when I started, told me. They're like, I don't know how you would do it now. Because when they started, there were clubs and they were open every night and you can go up whenever you wanted. And when I started, it was like open mics and a lot harder. And now I see it and it's like, there are shows every night in Chicago, I'm sure. And there's a lot. but there's so many more comedians that I think it's,
Right.
but at the same time, you're right. People, there's really good rooms run by comedians, and I think stand up is such a accessible thing for everybody that if the shows are good, people are always going to come on some
Sure.
level.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Now, when the little one came in the picture, the kid, did that, I sound like the kid, like it's just like thing, the way I said that there. But when kid came in the picture, was that tougher for you now as a parent and still trying to pull, your living? Was that a challenge for you?
Well, for my, I tell people when I was a kid, there was a young adult fiction writer that came to my school and spoke. Like
Uh-huh.
he wrote like, I don't know, horror books for kids.
Oh, wow. For
Not like really,
kids. They're for
but like,
kids though? Horror books for
yeah, like
kids? Wow.
teenage kids,
Shit.
like the ones that came out when I
Like
was in,
R.L. Stein.
yeah, like R.L.
Okay,
Stein,
okay.
but not as well known.
Yeah.
And he told me,
Not as well though.
yeah, because I don't remember his name, but he was so cool to hear talk because he was like, when you're a writer, you sometimes I look at my money and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I have so many bills, I don't have anything. I go out to my mailbox and there's just more bills. And sometimes I go out to my mailbox and there's a check and I can buy a car with that check.
That's
And
great.
I was just like, oh, I want that life.
Oh,
Awesome. Like, and that's kind of how it's been. Like, there's like years where it's really, before I even had a kid, where it's like, okay, this is hard. I don't know how,
I'm gonna do
luckily I
it.
was able
Yeah.
with my parents, and like I could always, I mean, now I have a kid, I can't really go back, but um
They won't let
I
you.
always felt supported by them at least. But I was like, there was just really hard. And then there were some years where, or not years, but moments where I like would just, something would come through and I'd be okay for a while. And I think with a kid, it just sort of raises the bar on what that okay is. So it's like, and luckily his mom was fine staying home with him. So I was able to work a lot still. I didn't stop working. It
Mhm.
was just the amount I made makes
Yeah.
less of an impact because there's another person. But when they're really little, there's not as much yet. Like food wise, there's not a lot. There's
They're
like
not
clothes.
yelling at you. They're not saying, "Hey, I need this." They're just kind of there.
And luckily, like grandparents and cousins, like he like given him a lot of clothes and toys and stuff. So there wasn't really a ton of out of pocket expenses for him. But I know it's
Mhm.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, you said mom, as you still together or you on your own?
Yeah. So right now we live like 3 blocks away from each other.
Oh, okay.
So he's over here. I mean, we try to do like every other day or something so he can
You
see
guys
him.
make it work. You're close still.
Yeah, I mean, we're working it out.
That's good.
Ideally, I think I would recommend if you're starting a family to like have it all worked out already because it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
But it is, I mean, it has its own special times. Like when we were together, I sort of discovered this time I had with my son alone because she was
Mm,
doing work or whatever, and I really valued that. And I think I get
sure.
that all the time now when I'm with him because it's just me
It's
and him mostly.
awesome. Yeah.
So I think there's benefits, and who knows? There's always an opportunity for it to be a brighter future as far as we go. But
Right.
yeah.
That's good. So now, how's everything been with the COVID and stuff? I mean, you're out in basically a war zone, or at least I don't know if it's gotten better
Oh,
out there. I mean,
it
I
has.
feel
I
like if
start.
you leave the house, like you might get it out there. Like as
Well,
soon
it's
as you
funny.
open the door, you got
Yeah,
it.
where I used to live. Well, I mean, I live still pretty close to there, like 3 blocks from there. It was like if you go to when you leave the apartment, if you go to the left, that's North Hollywood, and their numbers were bad
Yeah.
because it's not a high income area. But if you go to your right, it's Toluca Lake, and it was very low because those are pretty rich people.
Yeah.
Like Melissa McCarthy, I think lives
So
in
they
Toluca.
probably weren't wearing masks then in that area.
Well, yeah, I mean, but everyone was. So it's like when we would go for walks, they're like, let's go right because we know we're
Yeah.
not going to.
Yeah.
So we've luckily just been really careful, and it turns out like Jack has been good. Like my son's been
That's your
okay.
kid, Jack. Okay.
Yeah, and we just been really careful. And I think I don't know. Like LeBron James said, it's all luck, but I feel like so far we've been lucky, and and I hope that continues.
Yeah, no, that's great. So you got shows coming up. This is kind of one of the first interviews I've been able to do where I've actually had to when I'm talking to a comedian. The last one I talked with was a couple months ago. It was Mike Marino. Was it
Yeah,
was it him? Yeah, I think it was him. And I didn't say, so what are your shows coming up? But now I could do that. I mean, you are doing something. You're doing something tonight. This will
yeah,
post but after the show, but
yeah.
you got anything else coming up? Live stream or in
Is
person?
it posting tonight?
Yeah, this is good. Well, this this you have a show tonight, right? A Zoom show.
Show tonight. Yeah, so that
Yeah,
one
this is
doesn't.
gonna post Monday.
Okay,
But
cool.
do you have anything else coming up or in the
Yeah, let me
future?
check my calendar. April 8th through the 10th. Is
April 8th through the 10th.
that too far out?
No, I mean that's gonna be here before you know it.
Yeah, people should get their tickets now. I'll be at Zany's in Rosemont, April
Oh my
8th.
God, Chicago.
Yeah,
I will be there. I
yeah.
didn't.
Let me know.
That's
Yeah,
great. I
yeah.
would definitely come. I'm excited though that they're doing that stuff. They've been actually doing it for a while, and I think
Yeah.
comedy is gonna be the first one in live entertainment to test the waters really safely.
I think so. I did a couple in states that had looser, like I did Missouri, I did Kansas City over
Oh,
New Year.
wide open.
Yeah, and Indiana, and
COVID
so
who?
I've done places that don't care.
Yeah.
And the cool thing I think about stand-up comedy shows, if you're listening, like only come if you feel comfortable, because you're only
Yeah.
gonna enjoy it if you're comfortable, and especially if you're healthy, only come if you're
Sure.
healthy. But like, but it seems like the people that come out are healthy because they can come out,
They
So you're
want to
already
be there.
yeah, and some I don't think they do temperature checks everywhere, but some places they do. They want to be there.
Yeah.
They're healthy.
Yeah.
The tables, like there's rules, so people are spread out. One of the clubs I did just got a new air conditioning unit put in, so it was like
That's a big
being on
deal. Yeah.
your hospital air clean.
Oh
So
wow.
it almost feels like not safer than being outside. I think it's probably the same until everyone was over.
Yeah.
But I've always felt safe. I don't touch people. People don't touch each other.
Yeah. I don't. It's
Everyone's
kinda
taking
strange.
precautions.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and if you're with somebody, you're usually facing out. Whereas like you're eating dinner with someone, you're towards them. So I think it might be even safer like going to a bar and sitting with someone because it's like you're facing.
Right.
So I don't know. I liked it, and every place I've gone has been okay. So
That's great, man. Well, man, I appreciate you doing this.
for sure. Thanks for having me.
You bet, man. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, you too.